大家晚上好，我们现在将要准时开始今天的讲座了。那么咱们今天的讲座的主题和内容呢，是非常契合于当下这个时间，孩子们即将返校了。那么在校园生活即将开始的这个阶段，包括我们刚返校，比如说头2周有什么样的一些小的 strategies、小的 tips，是我们可以从这个前辈从这个学长学姐这边可以获得一些有用的小 tips，然后可以让大家的这个新的一年开一个好头，然后尽快的进入学习的状态，能够更好的来帮助自己夯实学术的基础然后可以更快的融入到咱们的新的集体当中同时怎么样去有效的破冰呢？同时和这个老师以及同龄人之间，一般来讲呢，进行一个什么样的交流，会更有助于自己在新学期这个大展拳脚。我觉得今天呢，咱们3位学生代表们将会有非常精彩的分享带给大家。所以let's just stay tuned and there's going to be some wonderful insights for today. 好的，那么在有更多人加入我们的这个过程当中呢，我首先会用咱们今天讲座的前5到10分钟，先稍微简单的介绍一下我们是什么样的一个类型的组织，然后同时呢，我们的初心以及 mission 和 vision 是什么，能够帮助大家更好的了解我们。Okay, so I'm just gonna get started now. 咱们后半程的讲座呢，主要是会以英语来进行的，但是前期呢，我会做一个中文的简单的介绍。同时呢，如果对于实时的字幕翻译有所需求的家长朋友们呢，或者是学生们呢，可以把屏幕中间的这个 CC 的功能点开。那么不管是中文的也好，还是英文的也好，它会实时的把咱们目前的这个字幕给转换出来，能够更好的帮助大家理解以及 follow up with the content。 好，那么我们 ETF 公益企划的全名呢是 Enlighten the Future， 那么翻译为中文呢可以是启迪、引领或是点亮未来基金会。我们本身的初心呢是希望能够构筑和搭建一个帮助学生们更好去发声的平台，能够让他们把自己最真实的一些视角以及他们自己本身的经历，能够以一个最有这个 authenticity 的一个形式来分享给大家，那么创造同学们以及学生们之间真正能够同频去交流的机会，以第一人称的视角来进行分享，这个其实是相对来讲比较少见的，因为我们可能很多时候在网上会有一些信息，或者是家长朋友们之间会有一些信息的这种流传，但是实际上以孩子们自己亲历者的角度去分享，并不是那么太多见，所以我们希望来 bridge the gap， 我们希望把这个空缺来补上，那也能够最大程度的激发我们孩子们自己本身的领导力以及他们这种乐于助人的这样的一些好的品质，也可以得到一个非常棒的平台的这种滋养能够最大程度的提升他们自己的个人综合素质，那么对于他们以后也是会有非常好的这些帮助。那么我们做这一系列的这个 actions， 其实最主要就是希望能够有效的避免信息差，然后能够让一切的信息更加的透明化。那么大家不管是在升学方面呢，或者是课外活动方面呢，或者是希望向过来人去取经等等，我们的这些信息都是第一手的，而且是非常透明的，非常真实的。那么我们现在呢是固定的每2周1次为一个周期来找到大家，跟大家做一下线上讲座。那么目前为止呢，我们一般选择的时间段是周末的晚间然后我们已经在过去的2个月有过一些非常精彩的分享，所以说还没有关注到我们公众平台，或者说没有关注到我们 official YouTube channel 的各位家长朋友们还有学生们，可以鼓励大家去多多点一点关注，里面有一些很精彩的内容，一些实时分享的内容，包括常看常新的一些内容，所以希望大家去多多的交流分享。同时呢，我们目前的内容涵盖有升学方面的、课外活动方面的个人的兴趣爱好或是学术的一些强项包括择校如果大家有一些升学上面的需求等等，这些都会成为一个很好的一个 material， 一些素材个人案例的分享我们希望呢，共同来建立这个比较良好的学生帮助学生、前辈提携后辈的这样的健康良好的生态。那么大家在一块儿 ，together we enlighten the future for more in need。 这是我们的 slogan 啊，也是我们比较引以为豪的一点。那本质我们是以学生的领导力为核心来推动的一个企划，然后我们非常非常的注重学生们自己 leadership 的培养，而且全程呢大家的参与是非常的饱满的，而且是非常完整的。负责每一次的选题啊，以及全程的沟通。那么大家如何来分工协作，包括最终结果是怎么样去呈现，这些全部都是由我们的学生自己去脑力激荡，同时大家去开小组会议，然后不断的接下来往下一步去推进。所以我们每一次线上活动的成功举办，包括之后我们会有很多线下的活动，那这些都是一些非常宝贵的成长机会。那么线下活动呢，可能会有 workshops，或者是 info sessions，或者是宣讲会，或者是一些 Q&A sessions 啊，以及我们非常全力正在推动的 student mentorship program，用孩子自己的视角来更平等的、更加同频的和同样是学生身份的其他的孩子们去交流，那么大家都在 on the same page， 有的时候这样的交流呢会迸发出不一样的火花，或者是读书会，所以会有很多很有意思的活动在等待着大家。我们也在非常鼓励大家在参与。那么其实我们现在呢在进行首届的招新会，任何9到12年级的学生，或者是7到8年级啊，这个统筹能力很强，或者是非常有很多好的 ideas 的学生们，我们非常鼓励大家来参与。那么我们的3个最核心的优势，第一点是可以获得真实的学生领导的这样的机会呀，因为在不同的阶段，如何去承担一个领导者的位置，这个重要性已经无需赘述。那么我们这个平台呢，作为一个 NGO， 作为一个incorporated not-for-profit organization here in Canada， 我们的这个平台实际上可以提供非常多样化的机会。那么第二点核心的优势是，孩子们可以站在前线，真实的投入在这一系列的公益的企划和活动当中，用自己的切身的参与来创造改变，来成为推动改变的一份子。那么第3点呢，是他们在这当中会结识很多志同道合的好朋友们。那么这一些的 bonding， 这一些的 friendship 可以是 lifelong， 可以是 very long term。我觉得这一些我们核心的这种 benefits 以及 advantages 是非常吸引大家的。所以有兴趣的家长朋友们呢，以及咱们的孩子们呢，可以扫描这个2维码，然后同时可以联系到我本人，我们之后会1对1的与每一位愿意与我们接触，然后愿意成为我们一份子的大家呢，去保持联系，然后去进行下一步的更多的一些 conversations。那么这些呢，都可以在我们群里面找到。所以目前呢，大家如果没有扫到这个2维码，不用担心，之后还会有更多这样的信息在咱们的群里面流传，在我们的群里面不断的 reoccurring and resurfacing。所以大家只要持续的关注我们，总会有很多适合你的机会，然后呢，让更多的这样的人才来加入我们，成为我们的一份子，然后大家一起把这一个同样学生帮助学生，前辈提携后辈这样一个生态，可以把它做起来。Alright， 所以很多种的这种参与的方式，然后我们是不囿于任何形式或者是规模的，所以只要有好的 ideas， 我们随时都非常欢迎大家来 approach 我们，可以成为我们下一个潜在的 guest speaker， 可以去帮我们一起做脑力激荡，可以和我们现有的学生 member 一起来策划接下来的活动，不管是线上的也好，还是线下的也好，能够这样真实的让孩子们有这种上手的机会，有这样去尝试的机会，我个人以为是一个非常宝贵、非常好的这样的 opportunities。Alright， 那么接下来呢，我希望再用短暂的，比如2分钟的时间来做一下 housekeeping reminders。那么我们接下来的大部分的内容将会以英文来进行。Once again， 需要实时字幕翻译的家长朋友们可以点击一下屏幕当中的 CC 按钮，这样的话呢，我们的这个字幕呢实时翻译就会显现出来。然后我们讲座是全程录像的，那么录制好了的版本将会在24小时以内上传到我们官方的 YouTube 账号，欢迎大家去comment 点赞、留言、评论，然后和身边的人大家一起去分享。那么这样的内容可以 reach 到更多的人，是我们的初心。那么最后呢，10到15分钟的时间是我们预留给 Q&A 的线上的答疑的环节。所以如果在这个讲座进行的过程当中，你有任何的疑问，可以随时在 chat box 里面把您的问题打出来，那么我们会在最后来进行一个统一的 take up。好，那么如果您的问题是更加偏向于个人的情况，如果 it's a little too personal or it's a little too private， 我们非常鼓励大家以1对1的形式进行线下，或者是在会议后有一个这样的 approach， 能够更好的 了解到您的诉求，或者说孩子们现在有什么样的需求，能够更好的回答您的疑问，或者是有任何的问题，咱们都可以放在1对1一个更好的这样的 attention 的情况之下去进行。All right, so we will switch to English now, and I will be stop sharing for a little, and everyone can now see the CC caption button. 所以如果需要 CC 实时字幕翻译的朋友们呢，可以把这个 CC 打开。那么 I think it's the right time for us to proceed. So we are having 3 student guest speakers with us tonight. We have Chenxi here, Ethan, and also Angela. So one of the very first things that we would like to do is to give them a chance to talk a little more about themselves, who they are, and what kind of backgrounds they're having. That's Chenxi. It's very nice to have her. And next, we're going with Ethan.
Hello. I'm a student at Chenxi's College. I'm going to grade 10, and my favorite sport is track and field. But on my free time, I like to do Model United Nations and anything business related.
Awesome, great. And next we have Angela.
Well, hi, my name is Angela. I'm also going to grade 9 with Chenxi, and I'm also going to St. Clements. I guess my favorite thing to do is like play piano and play badminton.
Okay, it's great to have everyone here, and we have more joining us in the meantime too. So we're gonna proceed with the first category of what we have brainstormed and prepared for everyone who's attending tonight. So back to school, I think one of the first things is the same for everyone is that we are in a new environment and we will be meeting it with new people and new teachers probably. So ice breaking becomes one of the first things of what we care about, if not we care the most about it. So one of the little slogans or one of the little sections that we have here is that, well, how do we do the ice breaking when we are proceeding with new school's life within about 2 weeks, let's say? So first of all, I would like to ask all of us here, what is the necessity of ice breaking when school just restarted, right? How does it become useful? So I'll begin with Ethan first.
Okay, so ice breaking is like essential when school starts because it helps to create a more welcoming and inclusive atmosphere, and it's useful in helping your peers or students feel more comfortable, reducing social anxiety and building connections overall. Yeah, that's why I think it's like really necessary.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes we hear, if not all the time, that people are saying, well, I kind of know who am I going to school with? Like I know my like kind of classmates already. So what's the point of doing that ice breaking again, right? If we are already have been going to school with each other and we have known each other for a while, what's that necessity for doing just another time of ice breaking? Angela, if you want to go on and just talk a little bit about that, it'd be great.
Oh yeah, I feel like ice breaking is really important because you're basically giving out your first impression because they're students, they're not going to be your friends. They won't have any clue about you. They only look at you, your face, your clothing. So when you like do ice breaking and you like, share like a fact about yourself, people might get to know you more and maybe they have the same interest as you and want to bond with you.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's totally true when it comes down to ice breaking is that even with people who have already known you, there's still aspects that they might not know about. So there's always chances for you bringing out something new. And a lot of times we say first impression is the lasting impression, or first impression is the last impression because that will last and depends on how you conduct yourself. So let's try out with Chenxi if the audio problem is getting a little better.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I think now we're good. Do you want to also speak just a little to that ice breaking question we were having just now?
Sure. So I think the importance of ice-breaking questions and maybe a little bit like pleasantries is that like you can show your friendliness to people because sometimes like both of you want to make friend with each other. It's just that you need the friendly opening. So I think you should like maybe you should take that initiate and then start the first and then be friends with each other. And I think secondly, you can also like find people who have common interests with you to have the friendly opening start. And I think that's the importance.
Well, sounds interesting. Yeah. So I think one of the other things is that how we do the ice breaking is going to be very different depending on who we are ice breaking with. So I'm gonna go with Ethan with this one. So any kind of starters or tips when you're trying to ice break with peers, like people who go into the same classes with you, or people who are pretty much at your age, where you might know them before, or maybe not. But what are some of the common starters that you find very useful?
First is to like maintain your approachable body language and to like appear approachable to your peers. And next, I think it'd be confidence to introduce yourself with like confidently and ask open-ended questions to initiate like a good conversation that both of you can engage in. And lastly, I think it'd be important to attend events to meet other fellow newcomers or your peers, or join clubs to be more social.
Right. I think with the rest of what Ethan has given us just now, for example, attending events or going to clubs and appear to be approachable, we're going to talk a little more about all of those in the following sections, but those are totally correct. Like you need to have that cue that is showing in you if we want to approach others or if we want others to approach us. Is always a two-way connection. So that's absolutely true. Back to Angela's turn. All right. I'm gonna just like begin with you with a different aspect. So Ethan just talked with us regarding how do we ice break with peers and what are some of the common starters that we can use. But things are going to go a little different when we think of how do we ice break with our teachers, with our counselors, or with school officials. So Angela, any advice on that regard?
Okay, so I mean, first thing, of course, is definitely to approach the teacher, but then I guess you could like ask them questions as well. Ask them questions about like, oh, I really like this particular subject. Do you have any way where I could like maybe join this? Or like, do you have like, can you give me any opportunities? And that way they know what you're interested in and they could help you a lot. And I believe ice breaking with like teachers or counselors could really give you so much opportunities. They will really like you well because so many students do not approach teachers or counselors. So they're going to really like you a lot.
That's totally true. We have a lot of quiet students, or they tend to be quiet, or they call themselves just a little kind of late starters that they would want to let's say break into the vibe, but it would just take them some time. However, this is, I think, is a very useful advice for everyone who's here. It's just that we need to make sure that we're making that first step, just as Angela was talking about, and this is totally true, that we don't have a lot of students who would make that quick and immediate approach to teachers when school just restarted. Some people would feel like, okay, granted, I've already known this teacher, so the teacher kind of knows me well, but sometimes we'll forget about just how many classes or how many students does teacher need to handle or those teacher need to interact with. So if we want to be memorable, if we want to be the one that the teacher can actually think of and actually know something about us, we would want to create more chances to have that interaction and to have that kind of conversation with your teachers too. All right, Chenxi, do we have any more add-ons from your end regarding how do we make that break, let's say ice break conversations with teachers, with school officials?
Sure, I do have something to add on to, because the purpose of ice breaking with teachers is that it's to allow them to know you more beyond your names, because they're actually like 30 to 40 students in their class and it's hard to make you stand out from the blurry background. So it's a very good chance to let them know you more and to let them know that you're interested and curious about what they're teaching about and show attentiveness. I think that's a very good purpose.
Right, because it's very true that a lot of those great opportunities that sometimes students get, or they are able to play like more of a role in a class, like either in the class or outside of the class, they come from those little conversations that you make with your teachers. Those opportunities arise from your conversations made with your counselors, and then they get to know you well so that they can actually think of you in certain occasion. And that's when the opportunity arises, is never taken for granted, or it is not like all of a sudden or out of the blue. Everything is traceable. So I think that is something great to share with everybody who's here tonight. Okay. Another scenario. So all of the things that we just talked about would work really great for people who have a little experience going to school here in Canada. So what about newcomers? For example, this is going to be the very first year that they start school here, or this is the very first time that they're having school in an English environment or in this North American culture. So what would be some of the things that all of you would advise them to do as a newcomer, kind of to quickly merge into the culture, or to get a quick grasp of what it takes to kind of go to school here? I'm going to go with Ethan first.
So I mentioned this before, but like any opportunity that is given to you to introduce yourself, I think you should take that opportunity for granted and express yourself in a more optimistic, specific, and cheerful way to engage your peers and icebreak. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So well, regarding kind of getting a quick sense of the culture, or as a newcomer, right? How do we sit in, or how do we merge in smoothly? I'm gonna go with Chenxi for the next turn to see if you have anything more to add on for us.
So I have in general 4 tips about how to emerge into the new environment. So the first one is to participate into local activities and festivals in order to learn the local traditions and cultures. Because when I first came to Canada, I'm not familiar because I came from an Eastern country, China, and I'm not that familiar with the Eastern culture. So my family decided to partake into many local festivals such as a Christmas Eve and others like Thanksgiving. It's a very good chance to know the local people more because you know this country will be the place that you live for the next few years. And the second one is to prepare yourself for the upcoming school semester, like enhance your English communication skills and mathematics skills. And the third one is about reading and like watching movies to learn the pop culture and also accumulating like topics for discussion with like your future classmates. And the last one, the fourth one, is to never give up trying to develop new relationships with others.
Right, I think that's very useful for any newcomers trying to have a very smooth merging into the larger community. Do the research, do the homework, and understand where am I going to and what is popular in this place. I think that will provide tons of interesting starters, conversational starters that you're able to just toss out or propose to others who are around you. And those things could very much help you bridge the gap between and have a better conversation or a more smoothed out conversation with either your peers or people who are older than you, is especially regarding kind of introduce yourself to like a new setting. I think that's something going to be pretty exciting. All right. So next, I would like to ask Angela, like in the school setting, there's always a lot of groups, right? So sometimes you will do the group work, sometimes you have presentations to make together, and other times you have something to do. Just there's always some collaboration that's going on with your peers or with your classmates. So any tips regarding how do we work in a group setting, Angela?
Well, it's definitely scary at first, especially when you're really shy and an introvert, because I know from my experience, there's always someone that wants to be the leader of the group, and there's just nothing wrong with it. But like, you also want to be the leader, but everyone just cannot be the leader. So, I'd say that, you just have to be a member and work well. And for me, the best way to work is to be considerate. People have different ways, okay? They have different ways to think. They have different ideas. You need to think why they're thinking like this. And if you don't agree with them, just think about why you don't agree with them and why did they pick this idea. And then you could just kindly negotiate with them, like saying, I don't really agree with this idea. But do you think this way could help? Because I believe this way could, maybe like, I don't know, just improve things better. And it's just, you need to be patient, considerate, and you just need to participate a lot, just like, just to say your voice, just be part of the group, but don't be like the background, just like being silent and all that, because the teachers will know it. Because I know like some teachers, they will like look around their class They will see that if you're not doing any work, they're going to suspect that there's something wrong, and they might not give you a good grade, you know?
Right, because we know the participation weighs very heavily in the
Mhm.
overall grade too. So that is a great reminder for everybody who's going back to school at all grades, really, because group work is everywhere, and merging into a group setting, it's a common issue or challenge that we all have to deal and face. Ethan, anything to add on?
Yeah, it's just I just really wanted to emphasize on the group work. Like, for example, when I was in a group project with my friends, we weren't really collaborating well, and we were like fooling around as friends, and everyone wanted to be like the manager of the group, and we ended up all having to redo the project because we didn't work well. And I think collaboration is like a really important factor in
Right.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, and communication plays a huge role in it. So Chenxi, regarding that, right, we're also kind of moving into the next little question, which is why does merging in matter, right? I mean, there's always a lot of issues revolving around it. Some people find it pleasant to work with your teammates, and others sometimes or more than often find it challenging, or if the communication fails, or if something goes outside of the control, and that just give us different portraits, right? So sometimes we have this team player image, and other times we have this lone wolf image, like you prefer doing things alone. Granted, there's nothing wrong with either type. It's just people are accustomed to different ways of learning, and there are different opportunities to work on your solo project, for example, or independent project. But still, Chenxi, mind giving us a little take on why does merging matter, and why working well in a group setting matter in school?
Merging in does matter because it's usually so hard to get things done just by yourself. Just as Ethan and Angela just mentioned, collaboration and taking responsibilities in a group project is really important. Maybe not everyone can be that like single leader, but everyone can use their own values and strength to help building up your team, right? And in the meantime, you can also enjoy your friendship in the team, like you can working with your friends and looking and helping them to be better, to improve themselves, and while also improving yourself. And that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because when it comes down to this team player versus lone wolf, I think just one very important differentiation that we all need to make clear is that team player doesn't mean you only work well in a team. Doesn't make sense, right, everyone? It also means that you have a very, very kind of higher than standard personal capability or individualized capability to do your own things well. But we just need to understand that in this North American culture, in the Canadian school system, it's not designed for us to do everything by ourselves. That's the reason why there's participation marked as a particular criteria in your overall performance. That's why you will be evaluated in how well you work in a group. So it's very, let's say, it's more than common for us to bump into different problems at certain stages. Maybe some of the team members are not collaborating as well. Maybe sometimes we didn't really make that initiative to make the conversation go along, etc. There could be different and various issues at different moments, but we just all need to know that being a team player and portray as well as conduct yourself as a team player is always going to be much more advantageous than a lone wolf, as if we don't work well in a team. So I think that differentiation is very important and essential to be made. So I think we have some great advice regarding how do we make sure that we are considerate, and how do we make sure that we are able to prioritize the tasks and we are thinking in the best interest of the group. Okay, so moving on to the next section, I think newcomers are a very complex and complicated situation because a lot of times we have different scenarios rising in. So we sort of touched on this before, and Chenxi was giving us some wonderful advice regarding how do we quickly like ask newcomers who just landed, let's say 2 months ago, or less than half a year, how do they get the best sense of how do we live and study in Canada? So other than what Chenxi was giving us before, Angela, do you have something else to add on for us? Any tips for newcomers regarding how do I know what are expected of me if I want to study and live here?
Well, I would say the big thing is contact the school that you're planning to go to because they could give you a rough idea of the curriculum. But also maybe like ask your family members if there's like someone they know here in Canada because they could also give you an idea of what they learned here in Canada and you could see how it is compared to like maybe like your country and Canada, and I believe that could help a lot.
Right, yeah. So knowing the curriculum, knowing the setting, understand how things work here. I think just we always say that like if you want to play a game well, you would want to know the rules first. So that's pretty much the idea to make sure that you understand the nuts and bolts and make sure that the expectations are clear so that we're not making any communicational misunderstanding in between, so that this can really just reduce the chances of getting something wrong and then not being able to start strong. Ethan, on top of all of that, do you have something else to provide?
Yeah, for sure. Like engaging in cultural immersion is like a large part, and you can do that by participating in local activities or events that people host, or you can also, I think there are like student support services that are offered, and you can connect or engage with them and make friends through local people or fellow newcomers that is like relatable with you.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Make sure that you're finding something in common as fast as possible. That does become one of the first things of like how do we pick up what is important here, what is popular here, so that you're able to have something in common, and that will bring this bridge of how do we make more and extended connections with others. Angela, anything on your end?
Oh, that's just something that's really interesting that I thought of. But your parents also play a big role in helping you because you cannot just be yourself independent, knowing like what to do, how to get all this information. So like you could ask your parents to like maybe join like these training sessions. I know there's this like training session that helps you to pass the citizenship, and they teach you a lot about like Canadian culture and all that. But it helps your parents a lot with networking because you could connect a lot to like maybe like volunteer staffs, and they could also give you many ideas of like upcoming local events.
Yeah, so that will provide us with some insider point of views or resources, and those things can quickly help us get the vibe of what it takes to live and study here, so that when you're actually integrating yourself into the Canadian educational system, it better be just a little more smooth and more effective for all of us to have a better experience. And another thing, very quick for Chenxi to take the lead in this one, is that for newcomers or people who have been here just for a short while, language barriers are always something that is difficult and it is a burden to overcome. So do we have any tips or strategies, especially for students who are able to adopt in order to make sure that they are able to make some quick and rapid and effective improvements over their language skills?
Yes, I do. And the most powerful one for me is reading novels. In the summer, when I first came to Toronto, I spent my whole summer vacation reading the whole series of Harry Potter novel. And I find it very useful because some expressions and vocabulary, you just cannot learn them from like usual English textbooks. You need to like put them in the actual conversation in order to obtain them. So I think like reading novel it's a very fun and interesting way to learn these like funny expressions because you actually enjoy the context of the conversation. And the next tip I found very useful is to change your phone language or your device language to English. And because like you always look at your phone every day, so like these languages will appear every day when you scroll at your phone. So look at social media and something like that.
Yeah, so just try your best to create that English vibe around you because this will be the main language of instruction that you'll stay very possibly for the next few years. So the sooner that you're getting all used to this, the better you will perform or you will behave in a classroom setting or back to school, right? Especially when school just restarted for about like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Ethan, do we have any add-ons from your end?
I think like the fastest way to adapt or improve is to engage in English conversations with peers, which also adds on to what we talked about before, is to meet new people and have conversations with them that not only improves your English skills or your language skills, but also improves your social capabilities.
Yeah, I think that's also very correct. It's more than true that sometimes we don't find ourselves making a lot of improvements, or you find that you are not sort of upgrading but downgrading. And like one of the most common issues that we find is that you're still getting used to your previous or your home country vibe instead of merging in actively into the new language setting, because we are now in a different country and the main language of instruction is different. So just try your best, I think, to break out of your previous kind of comfort zones and then just to step out and make tries. Granted, everybody's going to make a lot of mistakes, or we might not find it just very easy and smooth at the beginning, but that's only normal, as more than often that we see things like that. But if you are able to persist on keep trying and keep challenging yourself, things will eventually get better for you, because at the age that everyone is currently at, like if you're going back to school from, let's just say, grade 7 all the way to grade 12, any particular year in the middle, if you are able to break that shy shell and just go out and make approaches, granted that you will be seeing yourself making notable improvements, because this is one or some of the best years of learning a different language and then totally mastering it. All right, Chenxi, I think you have something new for us.
It was just like what you just said. Like engaging in new conversations with the local people is actually a very helpful one, because like asking them for coffee, go to Tim Horton and talk to the servers, it's so useful because sometimes you're not you do know how to say, like how to talk to them, how to make that conversation. You're just afraid of making mistakes. So you don't have that courage to speak to them. So I think courage and confidence are two very key factors in emerging into the new environment.
Absolutely. And this is something also that we need to pick up on when school just restarted, right? So you need to talk to your peers, you need to talk to your teachers, you need to talk to your counselors, you need to make a lot of different conversations, maybe with people who you train together with, right, in a school club. Whether it is just anything related to extracurricular, you will be able to meet new people almost on a daily basis. So courage, confidence, and just that willingness of making tries and not afraid of making mistakes, I think that is something that will become just equalized, and it's just equal to us all, regardless if we are very experienced going into school here in Canada, or if this is becoming our first year or second year of our Canadian educational experience. That is the same for all of us. All right, next, I think something interesting is that at the very beginning of school, how do we make sure that we are able to prepare ourselves academically? Because this is going to be a full year, and commonly we see 2 semesters, right? So you would want to have a strong start. So how should students really prepare themselves for anything that's upcoming? Granted that for each grade, the priorities are going to be different, but are there anything that can possibly help them with time management, or just to make sure that they are able to stay on track of what they're supposed to do? I'm going to begin it with Angela with this one, and then we'll proceed with the rest of our guest speakers here. Angela?
Oh yeah, there's actually like okay, because I actually have really bad time management and I barely study, but I did end up in the algorithm on social media and they gave me so many like good tips on discipline. And normally the first thing to do is like really start now, in the summertime, normally on the first day, they say just do one task, just finish one task for the day, and then you'll just feel good about yourself. Then the next day, you can maybe like add on another task. You do 2 tasks, and then the next day, you could just add on the tasks, and it helps you to build the discipline gradually while also increasing the workload. And I believe like this will help you a lot because you'll feel productive and you will feel really satisfied with the, the improvement and with you reaching the goals.
Great. Yeah, I think what's sort of making us feel that is all very challenging and sometimes even insurmountable is that we try to do a lot of things at the very beginning. But I think Angela has given us a great thought or a great inspiration. Is just you can just have your eyes focused on one thing in particular on a particular day. So maybe day one, this is what I want to do, or this is some of the things that I plan, and I think this is my number one priority. Then just do that number one priority promptly, and then gradually add on more things onto your list. So I think this is something absolutely worth trying. And Ethan, do you have something interesting or maybe new for us too regarding preparing ourselves for the rest of that school year?
One thing I found extremely helpful to stay on top of your workload is to create a study schedule or like a schedule to break tasks into smaller steps and be more organized. You could use productivity apps like time management tools or study planners, which help like a lot for someone that takes lots of difficult courses or stuff that you need to stay on top of. And another thing is to engage in stress reducing activities such as like meditating or just going outside for a little walk, because having lots of work can like take a toll on your mentality. So I think you should take little breaks, which also help.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the, well, nowadays like app stores or Play Store, like regardless of which ones you are more accustomed to, there are tons of software apps out there, right? The ones that Ethan was mentioning, time management tools like study planners, and there are many more out there. Maybe Chenxi can fill us in for some more. Are there anything that you're using and you feel like, okay, I'll recommend that to anyone who's also having like a little time management difficulty?
I think like you should familiarize with yourself with the timetable to know what the due dates are, and so you can balance the workload to each day. And I think that's a very good method.
Yeah, that's actually one of the must-dos for anyone who know that there will be more academic tasks and works and assignments upcoming. I think if the school usually does provide them. So one of the first things that everybody should absolutely go ahead and do is to make sure that you are having the curriculum at hand. You are having a course outline at hand. So you know, okay, on my way to finish this course, all those days in between, what are the big events and when are the big events, right? I think that is something that you can make sure that you're having that first quick look at your let's say the curriculum or the course outline, or simply having that conversation with your subject teachers. Those things will give you a rough idea of when are the peak times, meaning the busiest times. So what does that mean? I need to prepare myself, right? I need to understand when are my priorities are all piled together, and I need to make sure that I have that system ready so I don't panic, because I know already at the very beginning of what to expect. So have your own means. Different schools are having different mechanisms regarding that, but asking for that course curriculum or course outline, or give us a little look at what are going to be some of those timelines or task lines for the upcoming assignments, individual project. Let's say there are different projects to be done, or there are different assignments, but there's always a way to know that ahead of time. That is highly recommended together, along with all those software apps like study planners or time management tools that we are all able to get at just the work of our fingertips. I think those things can be great tools to together reduce your level of panicking. Okay, next. What are some of the things? Now let's kind of return back to what we were beginning with, that when school just restarted, what needs to be done, right? Especially regarding kind of concentration training. And if people find themselves having difficulty just concentrating class for a long period of time, or some just feel like it's kind of hard for me to really participate in the in-class engagement or the in-class discussions. So what are some of the things that student can start doing immediately after school restarts? I'm going to begin with Chenxi first.
I think the very first thing you can do immediately after school starts is to answer questions during class. That's a very obvious one because that's a very effective way to check your understanding toward a certain knowledge concept. For example, if your teacher just teaches you about like a new mathematic formula, and then she or he asks you a question about it, and then you can immediately check your understanding just based on that question. And then secondly, you must know where things are. For example, you must know like where certain classrooms are, so you won't panic when it's time for class.
Absolutely. Some of the basic little things, but they are going to help you in a long run. Ethan, what about you?
I think it is really important to take thorough notes during class, like when the teacher's explaining, and then you can review them after class, which is something I think everyone should try doing to stay on top of your work. And
right. Yeah, instead of over relying on your short-term memory, some of us have very impressive short-term memories, but don't give it to, let's say, don't push it to your limit. And taking notes in class is never a bad thing. It's always a very kind of in-time reminder of what are the important things that just talked about in the class setting, and you were able to take note on things that you don't quite understand so that you could always go and make conversations, right? Make further conversations. I think that should also be very, very important. Okay, so Angela, the next question goes to you. Between the teacher and the student, what kind of conversations do you think will be a good way to begin if you want to build that bond with your subject teachers? And we all have multiple subject teachers. So what do you think might be some of the good things to get started with?
Well, obviously, when your teachers are teaching you the subject, if you have any questions, like maybe if you think the questions are not like so urgent, you could ask them after class and meet up with them, because that way they have an understanding of how you think. You could be like, oh, sorry, I thought that this was this, so that's why I got it wrong. That could be one way, or even just talk about your interests, because I know there's this girl in my class, because she loves to draw a lot, so she has like a really close bond with the teacher because she always loves to share her drawings with teachers and explain it to them, and she tells about her personal life based on those drawings. And I feel like that's a really good way because you kind of being friends with the teachers, and I think that's just a good way, to just bond with the teachers, and they will pay close attention to you.
Very
Definitely.
good.
Yeah.
Yes, that's also very relatable. So you can pick up something that you're good at, but just make sure that you're showing that friendly signal. And it's more than important to make sure that you're really showing and demonstrating to the teacher that you care a lot about your own academic performance. And teachers love when they're seeing that the students are taking the initiative, that students are taking the responsibility, and you're not the type that to hold all the questions inside, but you are really willing to make more conversations with the teachers too. So I think those are some of the things that people can start trying just to make sure that sometimes write a little thank you email or an email just to say hi. I think those are some of the things that you can do to bond with the teacher too. But when school just to restart it, make sure that you're showing yourself actively, not just only inside the class setting, but when classes are over, those are also very wonderful time to talk to teachers too. Okay, now let's talk a little more regarding what kind of resources are we able to get in school, regarding how are we encouraged to diversify our out-of-class life, meaning extracurriculars, right? So first thing first is, why is it important for all of the students to be aware of what today's school, let's say, what are their school offering, or what are some of the resources that are available to get in school? So Ethan, I'm going to begin with you. Why does that matter? Why do we need to know?
I think being aware of your school resources is like really important because it could provide valuable academic or personal support, and it can also enhance your learning experience at your school, which helps with your future and learning more about like the world and obtaining more information, which is like really important in my opinion.
This is true. I mean, a lot of students only focus on what's going on inside the class, or over focusing on what's going on and what's like between me and my classmates or me and my subject teacher, but nothing more outside of the classroom. But now we know that when we evaluate how a student is doing in the high school or maybe the junior school experience is always more than things that are happening inside the class. Now it's a puzzle, and then every single piece matter a lot. So regarding that, I think it's important for us to ask who and where do we go to if we want those information. Chenxi, I'm going to be with you. Okay, so to where and who do we go to and who do we talk to when we want to know more about what kind of things are offered at school?
I think you can definitely ask your teachers about what resources it's available for you. For example, if like mathematics teachers, math teachers, they definitely know many competition opportunities that they recommend for you. So it's a very good chance to take for granted and participate actively in these competitions. And also you can ask your friends or other older students because they are more experienced than you in the school. And through that, you can reach out to more people and more students in your school.
Yeah, so to build that network really becomes some of the foundational things that you need to do if you want to be more resourceful innately, because that needs time to build on. And sometimes we might not have that expertise, but somebody older than us may have that. So make sure that you're making those connections and try to approach your teachers. They are the official resources outlet, so-called, so that they have the great information. Talk to your counselors too. And don't forget your advisors, right? So the academic advisors, don't just kind of bug them or come to them just for academic support, but they're here to make sure that you are enjoying yourself and you are having a wonderful well-being during the tenure that you're at school. So those are some of the great resources and places that we're able to go to. So do make sure that you're taking advantage of that, because those are provided for us. But a lot of times we'll leave them aside and we only talk to people who we know, and sometimes not breaking that circle. So it's hard for us to get in touch with certain information, which is not a really good sign if you want to start strong and long-term thriving at school. So that's something to remind everyone. All right, next, I'm going to go with Angela. So what are some of the events that you may suggest to students to partake in if they're new to the environment? Anything that's going on in school that you would suggest them to give a try?
Okay, because I feel like this is a bit of a personal question because schools have different clubs and all that. But I think the best thing to know is how strong, like, the clubs are. Like, if you know that there's many athletic people in the clubs, because that could be like a really big thing. You could like join them. You could learn a lot from those athletes. But also, like if you have an interest or passion for something, of course, to take it as well. And I guess, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that leads into very smoothly to the next question, which is, well, what kind of clubs or what kind of activities should we engage in? Ethan, I'm going to begin with you with this one. Do you think, or do you have any suggestions for people who are not yet deciding into what kind of clubs or what kind of events they would want to get into, but looking at what would be a good start?
My suggestion is to talk with the managers of each of those clubs and getting to know more about them to see if you're interested in them, or you could attend like a trial time, like one day or one meeting with them to see if you like it or not, and to see if you're like engaging with their community very well and if you fit in. So that's what I would suggest if you don't yet know what club you want to attend, which is
Right. Yeah, so I've known some incidents that people are not yet knowing what they're interested in, and they're just trying out one by one, or they're just kind of blindly following in their peers. When that peer conformity coming into the end, or the peer pressure sort of make them make the choices that might not be the best fit for them. So don't be shy and talk to your counselor when you are feeling that, okay, the school offers a lot and I'm kind of just in the middle, sort of lost and a little confused regarding which one do I go and do I want to involve in. So just make sure that you're really taking advantage of the school resources. And as Ethan said, there's always like a trying time. You can always give yourself a little try to see if the vibe clicks with you. And if you would want something maybe a little less on this, maybe a little more on that. So making sure that you're doing some field research and some field attempt, I think that could really just sometimes be the shortcut and make you, or let's say lead you to find your real passion. All right, Chenxi, another little question for you. Well, why let's say, what is the long-term benefit for students to actively participate in school events? Maybe some are all only doing one or two per year. Some people are doing a lot per year. But regarding that, what are the long-term benefits? Why do we want to urge students to be just a little more proactive in participating in those school events?
There are actually many long-term benefits of active engagement in multiple school events and extracurricular events. And among most of them, the first one I think is to establish your own friend circle, because you're gonna spend 4 years like in total in your high school. You can't be a lone wolf and fighting your way through the school, right? And I think finding your own support group is really important. And second, you can do some self improvement, like improve your leadership through participating into this events. And then lastly, you can actually leave legacies for future students. For example, if you establish a club, and then future student can actually inherit this club and make it more better.
Yeah, I think that's good too. And just on that note, right, there are always multiple and a wide arrays of different clubs and activities and different extracurricular events that are available in school. Some are academic, the other ones are non-academic, right? So just make your own research and go talk to your counselors as well as the teachers who are teaching you. And I would really suggest people who talk to teachers who know that you're good at certain field or who know you well personally, right? And that would be a great way also to make conversations, right? After you get to know a little while or know a little more of your teachers, then I think it's a really great time in for everyone just to approach and then make that conversation regarding, okay, now that you know me just a little more, what do you recommend me partaking in? We would just want to make sure that you're showing some commitment, you're showing a long-term responsibility, because those things will help you raise your seniority, which to a large extent would determine whether or not you will be able to get some chances to take leadership in that club or in that event or in that extracurricular activity in your later years. Everything is a building on process. So let's just not forget about how much effort and time it goes into that building phase. All right. Next, I would like to discuss a little more about stress management, right? And for people who are going into different grades, this is different. However, we don't doubt that it is also an on-building process. It's assumed, and also it's right to assume that it's like the stress will become exponentially high, and we're getting more and more, we are taking more and more too. So regarding the stress management, our well-being maintenance, and in this meantime, how do we still keep up our learning and productivity? We're gonna make a little conversation regarding this. So number one, right, how should students prepare themselves for the climbing stresses from school? So when the stresses are upcoming and they're getting really heavy, in what ways can students get ready for them so that it doesn't struck us and it doesn't knock us down immediately? Angela?
Okay, but I just want to first let everyone know, if you're like struggling you just know that there's also other people struggling, because like if teachers are just handing out so much workload, you're not the only one who's suffering. And I just hope you don't feel like you're the only one who's a failure and all that. But I feel like the best way to like deal with the stress first is definitely have energy, because when you're so stressed out, you become burnt out and it just leads things to be even worse. So like what my mom did, she was like a topper in class, but like if she was exhausted, she took like a 1 hour or 2 hour nap, and she was already like full of energy. Her brain was ready. She could like do the work well, and that gives you so much motivation. And I feel like when you're under so much pressure as well, you don't have enough time. You feel like you just don't have enough time. So the best way to do it is to manage your time efficiently as well. So like maybe like if you used to study for like 4 hours a day, but then you realize that it's taking too much of your time, try to find ways to maybe cut it in half and find efficient ways to like help you study properly.
Right. I think that's something very useful for all of us to take here. Ethan, I would like to give this question to you to answer. For high school freshmen, so people who are going into grade 9, you're going into grade 10, so you kind of passed at that very critical phase already. So based on your experience, how much of a difference does it make in a grade 9 life, which is the first year of high school, versus grade 8 and before? So what is the major difference you've noticed?
Other than like, well, the stress levels are like completely like different.
Right.
In grade 9, I was really stressed because of tests and other stuff and exams. So that kind of made me adapt by including time management, study techniques, and exercising or stress management activities to help me cope with that stress.
Right.
Compared to like grade 7, grade 8, I didn't really have that much homework or like any like major tests that I had to prepare for. So that was like a huge issue for me. But I kind of adapted by implementing these things. Yeah.
Right. So, regarding the strategies, regarding time management skills, regarding adapting and get used to the major testing and all those different milestones when big things are on the way, I think those are some of the things the students will need to get used to. But let's talk about what are there any tips to make it just a little easier. Chenxi, you want to speak up? Was this one?
I think they're like so first of all, don't cram for your tests, exams or assignment. Like you can't just decided to review the concepts right before the night of the exam, because that will add so much stress. And you just watch the time ticking by, and when you're and there's still like a mountain of work pile in front of you, that will add too much stress on you. And because tomorrow it's your exam day, and my second suggestion is to don't leave any questions, because they don't go away by themselves while you like being emotional in your room or something like that. You can like ask a teacher or a friend, because it will immediately solve the problem for you. And for myself, because I'm not a really procrastinating person, like I tend to solve the problem, like to get the assignments done right immediately after I got them. So it's a really useful tip, because you won't have any leftover.
Right, yeah. So making sure that you're always staying on top of your work. And we had sort of touched on this before, having some time management planners there, having like your calendars fill up, know your timetable well, understand the big events, make sure that you're approaching into your teachers, to school officials, your peers, and the counselors who will be the person second to none to know you best, right? Because they are there to make sure that academically you're doing well, but socially, emotionally, well-being wise, you're also doing fantastically. That's what they are. Let's say they are there to help. So you just need to make sure that you're reaching out for help when it becomes necessary. All right. So I think we're close to a wrap here. If anyone has any particular question that you were interested in asking, now it is one of the best times for you to hand type down some of those questions. And with people who are here who are more than willing to answer any of your questions. So if you do have any of those questions, make sure that they are coming out. And another thing that I would like to say very quick is that we are now rolling out every 2 weeks as the frequency that is fixed. And every time we'll be covering a slightly different topic that is appropriate to the time being that we are now, for example, now is the end of August. So that's why tonight we are having back to school gear up sharing. But as school gradually opens and then everybody is back for school, there will be new academic related questions. There will be new events that people are preparing for. Maybe there will be certain things related to the contests, or maybe some more regarding to school performance or testing in general. So if anyone has any question, right, now's the time to make sure that those questions are coming out. Otherwise, right, make sure that we're rolling out every 2 weeks, and there are more opportunities that we will be meeting more in the future. And I would like to really shout out to our student guest speakers tonight, Chenxi, Angela, and Ethan, who have been very informative and who have given us a lot of great advice. I hope that those things will provide helpful insights for people too. So I'll be waiting just a little while for maybe there's a little more questions coming out. But overall, just to sum it up a little for back to school vibe, regardless if we're a newcomer who just landed in Canada, who are just about to go into the Canadian educational system, maybe for the first time, or maybe this is the second year, etc., or maybe we're born here and raised here and we know it all, or we know it inside out. Something that doesn't change for us is that we will need to do ice breaking. And I think, I hope that people have been receiving some of those informative information from people who are speaking with us today, of just how important and that real necessity to make sure that you're stepping out of your comfort zones and making your own friends of circles, and also make sure that you're getting academically ready to embrace all of those challenges and changes that will come along the way. All right, so overall, I'm hoping that tonight has been an informative sharing, and really thank you so much for Chenxi, Angela, and Ethan, who have been here with us. And as we talked about it before, that this is going to be recorded, and the full recorded version will be up and uploaded within 24 hours to our official YouTube channel. So for anyone who has not yet subscribed to us, please make sure that you're subscribing so that you don't miss out on anything that is important. All right, so we will do a close remark, just one final reminder of who we are and what we do. We are Enlighten the Future Foundation. We are an incorporated not-for-profit organization here in Canada, and our slogan is, together we help more people to brighten their future by providing our own insights and to make sure that everyone is onto the right track of what they are interested in doing. So that is part of our slogan, and this is part of what we are hoping to bring together to this student community. So thank you very much for everyone who's joining us tonight, and thank you once again to our student guest speakers, and we hope to meet everyone very soon in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Okay, bye, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.